overthought. And I think that's what I used to do with mindfulness is I overthought mindfulness. And now I think mindfulness is really basically just thinking about it and going, this makes me happy, this doesn't make me happy, and moving on.
Welcome to Happy Thrive Vibes, the podcast that infuses your days with positivity, growth, and pure joy. I'm your host, Lara, and I started this podcast to shift from surviving to thriving and to spread gratitude through shared experiences and learning from others. Thank you for joining us on this uplifting journey. Are you ready to delve into the secrets of thriving in a world filled with challenges and opportunities? Through engaging conversations, honest insights, and real-life stories, we'll uncover the transformative power of embracing happiness and igniting your purpose and passions. How would your life be different if you could do more of what you love? Let's elevate our journey to lasting happiness and thriving success together, one episode at a time.
Hi, everyone. We are here for the first in a series of brief videos with my sister. She was one of my first guests on the podcast when it launched, and her name is Sara Cox. She does own Precision Cuts. I keep saying that. Also Phantom Sports, that is their sporting goods store, and they also vend. She is a super entrepreneur, super mom. They homeschool. She does it all. I don't know how. Even when I was working multiple jobs, she still was busier than me. And so as she continues to be, it's a Friday night, and here we are, because this is the only time to grab her when her store is closed and she's still near a computer. So Phantom Sports is in Vero Beach, Florida. And thank you for coming in, Sara.
Thank you for having me. I always love when we get to chat.
We only do get to chat when we are doing podcasts together, it seems lately. So hilarious and sad at the same time.
We have to fix that.
We do. And it's funny because when I played our episode back, I just laughed because we laugh the same. We have the same mannerisms. I was like, we are sisters. It's confirmed. That's good.
Yeah. Well, my kids get confused because they say that we sound exactly alike. I'll say something, they're like, you sound just like Aunt Lara. I'm like, she's my sister.
The gift and a curse. All right, so we are creating a mini series on happiness and abundance and happy thrive vibes, all of the things, the principles that we keep talking about. And this first one is mindfulness for happiness. And we're doing brief segments for each of them just to give you a little tidbit that makes you maybe go, aha, makes you go, I didn't see it that way. And also we think of things differently too. So we're going to share some different aspects of how we each think of what it is that we're discussing. The first one is mindfulness for happiness. Explore how mindfulness practices can reduce stress and increase well-being. Sara, how would you even define mindfulness? What does it mean when you hear mindfulness?
My idea of mindfulness has really it's not like one set in stone thing, I guess you could say. I don't know what it is about hitting 40 a few years ago, but I think a lot of the things I think have evolved, changed, not the basic core of it, but just the way I think of it. So when I think of mindfulness, I used to think of mindfulness as like every jot, every tittle, every detail about something that's being mindful. And over the course of the last couple of years, that's evolved to, I don't think mindfulness is necessarily every tiny detail. I think that it's simply like my pigtail buns. I knew we were going to do this podcast segment this afternoon. I also knew that for the last week, I've struggled with a migraine. So when I woke up this morning, I thought, when I wear my pigtail buns, it makes me happy. I'm going to be doing a podcast with my sister about happy thrive vibes. So I'm going to wear my pigtail buns because that makes me happy. And we're doing the podcast. Like, it doesn't have to be overthought. And I think that's what I used to do with mindfulness is I overthought mindfulness. And now I think mindfulness is really basically just thinking about it and going, this makes me happy, this doesn't make me happy, and moving on. Because if you overthink it, then it's not going to make you happy anymore. You just kind of just dive right in and think, okay, how does this situation, person, clothing, environment make me feel? And be mindful of how that makes you feel and act accordingly.
Overthinking everything is my favorite pastime.
Mine too. I'm trying to break that habit.
It is my favorite pastime. I love to overthink everything until I realize I'm overthinking it. And then that's mindfulness of mindfulness. It's like meta mindfulness, I think. And for me, mindfulness is really just recognizing what's happening in the moment. And for me, it's you shared how yours has evolved, and mine has evolved really because I used to have severe anxiety and panic attacks. And once I knew what was happening to my body,
Mhm.
I could talk myself down and calm myself down. But I had to recognize what was happening and admit what was happening before I said, okay, no, you're actually okay.
Mhm.
Everything is okay. You're safe. Nothing's happening. This is probably less than what it feels like. And for me, that's where my mindfulness evolved from, because
Mhm.
before that, I really didn't consider the source of how I was feeling or why I was feeling that way. It just was, that's how I was feeling. And I probably came across as a drama queen because I would think, like I had big emotions and I didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
All my big emotions, I kind of understand what's happening. I can feel when I'm stressed, and I'm more mindful if I feel like I need to, walk away or take a walk or just breathe or go, ask my husband some corny dad jokes. So
Or eat a cookie.
that for me is what my mindfulness is just recognizing, being able to reflect and recognize what's happening to make me feel the way I'm feeling if it's not a good feeling. And if it's a good feeling, I want to recognize that too because I want more of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think ours are pretty similar on how we think about it then.
And I was just cleaning out my closet and I didn't realize it at the time. And I'm not going all Marie Kondo on anybody, but I'm just saying that I didn't hold it in my hands and ask it if it made me feel good and then think it and then move it along. But I had a mirror out, I tried on things, and that's how I cleaned out my closet. Do I feel good in this? Do I feel confident in this? Does this make me happy?
Yes.
Honestly, I didn't even think about it. If it wasn't one of my favorite things, if it felt tight, if it felt itchy, if I felt self-conscious, that was it. It went in the donate stack. And then
Yep.
the most important part of that, I got those bags out of the house before I could change my mind on them and start rooting through them to get out my favorite something that I haven't worn in a year that I had to have back. So that
Yeah.
mindfulness is, maybe that's just from being mature, that we just go from like thinking so much into things to yes or no.
I think it does come from finding maturity, and it comes with age, because when you're younger, you have to be careful with mindfulness, because like you said, you can overthink mindfulness. Um, and you have to be careful with it. So as you get older, your mindfulness starts reflecting more on how things make you feel instead of being mindful on people's perception of you. And when you can learn to let go of, when you can change your mindfulness mindset to where you're not mindful anymore of people's perception of you, but you're now mindful of how you feel, then I think that makes a big difference in finding happiness, because everybody's got a different opinion and they can keep it to themselves.
But don't haven't you found it true that what we think others feel about us is so rarely the truth?
Yes.
We make these stories up in our minds, and that's a whole nother podcast episode that we could talk about. But we
Yeah.
make these we make these scenarios in our head, or we convince ourselves of something that someone else is thinking about us or that they've had a perception of us, then we find out that that isn't even true.
Yeah. Yeah. I always think back to when you worked at the bank and I lived there when I wasn't at work. And there was one lady that worked with you, and I can remember being in there. It was after I had Michael. So we had, two kids, one boy, one girl. We had one cat, we had one dog, we had a business. And she was just like, I just think that you have the picture perfect life. I just think, oh, you're just living the dream. And I was like, what? This woman has never talked to me before. I thought she didn't like me. And she's just like, I'm so happy for you. And while I appreciated that, and it made me realize I didn't know what she was thinking about me, but what she was thinking about me still wasn't true. It was
Well, it was
not
her
living the
perception of
dream.
you. It was her perception of you because I
Yeah.
think some people see the highlight reels too, and they see your best times and your best parts, and then they just assume that your whole life is based on that.
Yeah.
And I would brag about you all the time and how great you were. So I think that, I had some bias there.
Yeah. But you have to be mindful about that too. And that's a good thing to think about is you have to be mindful of the fact that you're seeing people's highlight reels on social media. When you're talking to friends, a lot of times you are just seeing that highlight reel and being mindful of that so that you're not comparing your life, your full life, highs and lows, to somebody else's highs, because that's all you're seeing. If you're mindful of that, when you're going through a low spot, you're not going to beat yourself up as much because you're going to be like, yeah, they have highs and lows too. I just don't see their lows. And so I think
I think
mindfulness
that's where
comes into
imposter
play
syndrome comes from too, because you're an entrepreneur and you have been for practically your whole life. You've been an entrepreneur. And I've always said, oh, I'm not an entrepreneur and I'm not creative and I don't even know what I would do. And I feel like this podcast is entrepreneur-ish. So I feel like I'm a late bloomer for entrepreneurship in the family because everyone else in the family was an entrepreneur except for me. I always just said, I need a paycheck. I need health benefits. I don't want to take a chance. Thank you very much. But you all did really well and you had that confidence in yourself and I didn't have that confidence in myself. So if I compare my entrepreneur-ish start that's 3 months old to you who've been doing it your whole life, you have your lives on social media and you have followers, you have people who come up to you in other states and they've been following you and they see you and they know you by name. And I could get imposter syndrome very easily if I compare my now with your 20 years of experience.
Yeah. Well, and even having done this forever, the fact that you brought up imposter syndrome. So Amy stopped in the store today. She was in the neighborhood and she brought me a root beer. And we were talking, and I had bought new tags for all of our apparel so that it had tags so it looked legitimate. And I made the comment to her, I said, I really struggle with imposter syndrome. We have this storefront, we have this legitimate store, cash register, like it's a real store. But some days I'm here and I feel like I'm just playing make believe. Like, does it really look like a store? Do I really have a store? Do we really have a business? And it doesn't matter how many years I've done that. To me, through my eyes, it feels like imposter syndrome, like I'm just playing a game. And then when people come in and they're like, oh, I really like your store, I'm like, does it look like a store? Like, yeah, why wouldn't it? And I'm like, okay, I was just checking.
Never
But I
mind. I
need
take
to
it
keep
back.
that mindfulness.
I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't have a cash register. So I take it all back. I'm not an entrepreneur and
You
I
are an
definitely
entrepreneur. Now you can have a cash register right on your phone. Cash App, Venmo, Zelle.
that's true. That's true. All right. Well, thank you for this segment, Sarah. I appreciate it. And for every one of you listening, think about your own mindfulness without overthinking it and how your mindfulness is your own and that you're thinking about the things that make you happy for yourself, not happy for others' perceived perceptions of you,
Yep.
because you're assuming what they're thinking, and how that can apply to happiness. So thank you so much for this segment, Sarah. See you
Thanks
again
for having
soon.
me. Bye.
Happy Thrive Vibes explores various topics aimed at promoting positivity and personal growth. We want to make it clear that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are not necessarily those of the creators or staff at Happy Thrive Vibes. Our aim is to provide a platform for diverse perspectives and ideas, and while we strive to present accurate information, the content discussed here is for entertainment and informational purposes only. We encourage you to form your own opinions and always consider multiple viewpoints.